Good morning. Hand today's going to be 9-4 offsuit. We are full table. Unlike yesterday's hand where we had a possibility of opening just a steal, this one no chance, just fold. We get a raise, we get a call, and the big blind calls. So let's work up ranges. This guy's playing 23-12. We have some notes on him. We don't really have any 3-bet stats or anything, but we do have some called three bets. That kind of suggests that either he raised or he cold called him. So I think the raises, looks like he can raise with suited broadways down at like Jack 9, Jack 10 suited, Ace Queen off. Looks like he's playing pretty good, and even his stats, 23% VPIP out of 167 hands, is a little bit tighter than some players, definitely tighter than this guy. We look at VPIP stats, early positions, 28%, 10 out of 36. That seems unusual. Maybe he's trying to take advantage of early position image, buttons wider, and so forth. So I put together a range like this. This is 14%. I think this is at least the minimum of what he's looking at. We included the Jack 9. We know he called with it. It's probably a raising hand. Not sure about the rest of these aces, suited aces. I know I would be definitely playing the lower suited aces, ace 5, ace 4, maybe ace 3, ace 2. I'd probably raise with 7-6. In this spot, probably also ace 10 off, king jack off, queen jack off, just to kind of open up what range, what kind of hands we're playing. We're going to go with this. This next player, we've played with him. You can see all the notes. He played a lot in the blind versus blind, or in the blind and then called raises. So we have him. Our 3-bet for him look to be queens plus ace queen, maybe jacks as well. We do have like information on the blinds that he probably calls 2-bets with jacks, but in a late position, I wouldn't be surprised if jacks gets thrown into a raising range. So I put a range together like this. Suited aces, pocket pairs, some suited broadways, so forth. How does that complete? So that's 11.6%. Let's check his stats. So he's in cutoff. He plays 32%, which it's a lot, but you can see his raise for sin stats 40%. What we need to look at is like calling and 3-bets. So 3-bets, 7% is 3 out of 46. And then call any 2-bets, only about 15%, 7 out of 46. So I think in the face of a raise, he's probably tightening up a bit. We could probably add a few more hands here. Maybe those to get us up to closer to 15. That might make some sense. Or we can just leave it as is, and I think I'm just going to leave it as is. Jack, maybe it's in there, maybe it's not. I'm going to leave it out. I kind of feel like in position players could start to 3-bet with jacks. And then we move to the big blind. We've got some hands with him as well. He's playing 15-11. Definitely looks like he's a tight, aggressive player. 3-bet ranges look to be pretty strong. Looks like he's got ace 4 suited. If he has ace 4, he probably has ace 5 suited as well. I think this would be a spot where if you have one of those hands, you could 3-bet to try to get heads up to narrow the field. You're basically executing a squeeze. And you would do that with your value hands. So I've got like jacks plus ace queen. But then you could toss in like the ace 4, ace 5 for balance to kind of give some weaker hands. So I have his at 11% as well. In the big line, it's 21% VPIP. Called 2-bets is 25%. So our range that we've built looks about half as tight as what we should be based on this called 2-bet percentage. But in the big blind, you're going to be facing steals. So attempt to steals or full blind to steal. He had 11 opportunities. He called 6. So it does look like he's just kind of called those 6 out of 24. are probably hands that he called because he was faced with the steal. Oh, I'm sorry, that's full call steal 5. Call steal 5 of those 6. So there's one other time that he's played where it was not in the steal situation. So we know he probably opens up his range against a steal. In this case, you've got a raise and a call. I don't necessarily think you're opening it up as much as you are against a steal. So we're going to go with this range. And we take the flop of 10-10-9 with 2 clubs. All right, I expect him to check. And then we get a bet. No big surprise. It's about half pot. We could look at what we expect him to do. So I kind of expect over pair plus to be betting here. That includes full house. I think it would be unusual for quads or full house to check in this spot. You raise pre-flop. You have the initiative. You should be betting, and I think most players do that. This is why we take notes, because if a player who had the lead decides to slow play this, it should appear in our notes. I think flush draw open ender is going to be betting here. I think overall this board's going to miss in terms of like the tens, but there's going to be flush draws, there's going to be straight draws, gut shots, etc. So I think, you know, if we account for the gut shots, and I also think the over pairs as well will likely bet here. Not sure about anything else like the nines. I guess we could throw that in. But the under pairs, I'm just not sure if he's going to bet. He's not c-betting 100%. I mean, he is c-betting 100%. 3 out of 3, 1 out of 1. So maybe he does. I think if he bets and then checks the turn, you kind of have an idea that he has hands like that he was c-betting. But I'm going to keep it reasonable and say 74.5 into a 3-person pot. This is probably more than reasonable for a c-bet range. And we get 1 call. So this guy folds. This guy calls. Here, you could slow play the full house. Definitely. And I think that's probably what he's going to do. I think 3 of kind's probably a raise. He does look like he has the aggression to raise. So I think a 3 of a kind raises, full house does not. But again, a lot of times I would see the raises come on the turn, so players will just call here, and then if the club does not hit, then they'll come in with a raise. So we're going to put 50%. Half the time he raises, half the time he doesn't. I think he's probably calling with all of his pair hands, and then flush draw, open enders, and we'll include the gut shot. So that's his calling range. All right, Jack of Diamonds comes out. He bets 10, which is, again, about half pot. Just a little bit more than half pot. I think probably top pair plus. I think the jack, if he hit a jack, he's probably betting. But you could see that his range actually improved with that jack now. I think the flush is probably still betting. Not sure about the open enders. Yeah, probably. We'll include the open enders. I think the gut shots. What kind of gut shots? Ace king. Kings. Kings are betting. Really, it's just ace king that we're looking at. Yeah, I think ace king just kind of gives up at this point, because these cards hit the player. So you had the bet, and now you have a call again. So at this point, yeah, quads I think are probably just going to call again. A full house is just going to call. I think a straight's going to raise. I think 3 of a kind's going to raise here. 3 of a kind, maybe not. We're going to scale this again. 3 of a kind, maybe not, because there's a straight on the board. That jack kind of put a wrinkle on things. I think top pair calls. I don't think any of those weak pair calls. I think you're looking at flush draws and open enders that'll probably still call. So this guy did fold some of his range that he took to the turn. King of Spades comes out. A third street now where it's almost about half pot again. At this point, I'm not sure if he's going to be betting with one pair. He could be, but mostly we're looking at straights, three of a kind plus, I think. I mean, there are some players that are just really bet. He could be one of them. Ace King. Nine, 10, Jack, King. A queen gives a straight, so no. I think a top pair probably just checks. I kind of think a two pair checks. I kind of think an overpair checks. Three of a kind probably checks too. Straight plus, I think, is what we're looking at for this player. And that leaves villain. I believe he calls. Quads would have raised. Full house would have raised. He's calling with the straight. He probably calls with three of a kind and two pair. I think two pair is going to be a tough fold, and even three of a kind would be a tough fold. But I think we could possibly find one of those folds. Honestly, I don't think I could. I would definitely fold all the rest. So I think that's where we're at, and we see at the board. So we've got a king 7. He did just call with a one pair hand. He called with a top pair, so we didn't have king 7 in his starting range. This guy had 7-8, so he had 7-8, 9-10 Jack. So he does have the straight with the 7-8. So we got that. We didn't get the king 7, and it comes down to a starting range. Wow, that's a kind of a loose call at that point against the early position raiser. I guess when we look at the rest of the hands, he is going to have those he would be calling those flushes. I think he made the mistake by calling on the river. I don't think he needs to call. I don't think he should be calling here. You just face 3 bets, 3 streets. 3 streets. You should not expect a one pair hand to win. You really should not, unless you know the player. Unless the player's stats are basically 100, 100, 100, then you can make that call. But against a 3 street barrel, your one pair is beat. So that's our hand. We should probably see what kind of mistakes. Calling. I'm gonna hit that. Calling. We saw 3 streets of value. I'm gonna say again. You need to fold the one pair. I don't mind his. He bet. That's definitely, he had initiative. He bet with an open ender. He caught the straight on the turn. He continued betting. You're going to have hands like this. The diamonds, the clubs are going to be calling. I think your queens are going to be calling. I think betting the 7-8 on the river, though, is it's questionable a little bit because you're at the bottom end of the straight. Any queen beats you, but you have all of those flush draws, and you kind of. I would probably fire the third street again at this 10NL game. I don't necessarily think I'm doing it at a higher game, and maybe not even against certain opponents in the 10NL game, because I think there's some better players who would not make that mistake of calling with a one pair hand. If they call, or probably be if they call, they have at least a queen for a higher straight. So I'll give him kudos for making that 3 streets. Could he have made more? I don't know. Half pot was a pretty decent size. Half pot. I guess you go half pot and then go a little bit larger. But if you go a little bit larger, it starts to make it seem like you're trying to fold out the draws. which could mean you've got at least a 2-pair type hand. Half pot could still be, oh, I've improved. In this case, like I've improved with queen, maybe ace queen of diamonds, or maybe I improved with ace king of diamonds, and now I've got a flush draw and a gut shot, hands like that. So I think half pot keeps hands in longer. But overall, yeah, I'm not gonna. I think he played it well. I think his pre-flop call was a little too loose, but that's my play. I think the flop call was loose. You've got a player behind you still to act, and a fairly tight player at that. He should have probably just folded on the flop to the flop c-bet and save himself money. And instead, so he's down to 95. He started with 133, so almost 40 big blinds is what he lost on this hand. Almost 40, so yeah, 35 big blinds is what he lost on the hand. So he should have just folded on the flop. He didn't, picked up some draw. And the reason I say, if you call here, you're making it more likely for him to call, and he's going to call with probably with some looser draws as well. But you don't have a hand. You're drawing to a backdoor flush draw. That's what you're drawing to. And then on the river, yeah, he needed a fold. So I think this is pretty straightforward hand. We're not going to do GTO because it was a 3-player hand, and that third player doesn't, we can't analyze it. So hopefully you learned something. Against 3 streets, 3 bets on every street, or a bet on every street, don't call with 1 pair unless you really know your opponent. All right, hopefully you enjoy this hand. If you do, look tomorrow for another.